To this point, we have learned two unbeatable phenomena in terms of Dix and my doing psychotherapy. One was that emotions can be boiled down to 6 in terms of therapy that are very effective: sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. And the second phenomena we have learned is that there's a basic biological instinct in human beings and animals and birds, which is the instinct of fear of abandonment, because abandonment means death. We've also learned about the abandonment card, the top card in the deck, and it's very important in human relationships. Let's say a client comes in and says to me, well, we're not getting anywhere and I think I'm going to quit therapy. Now, he has flashed the abandonment card. And I know that if he keeps that card, his therapy will be very ineffective. So I say, maybe it is time to quit. I'm taking back the card. Because I have noticed that you're not learning sachet, and you're stuck, and you're sticking yourself, and you're not growing. In other words, I take back that card. Now let's consider family dynamics, where a child has the abandonment card over his parents. He may, for instance, say, if you don't give me my way, I'll just become a drug addict, I'll become an alcoholic, I'll become a bum, or in some cases, I'll commit suicide. Now, sometimes that is not spoken aloud, but the parents have given that card to the child, let's say a boy. So time and time again, they give in to him, they do what he says, and he is the most powerful person in the family, in their relationship. So he comes to therapy, and I begin to discern that he has the abandonment card in his family, and furthermore, he's got a suicide threat. So I say to him, because it's very important that I keep that card, you know, if we're going to continue, you will have to contract with me that you will never, ever commit suicide. And I'm not saying something you promise some daddy therapist. I'm saying that we base this on a business contract right out of the center of your integrity, that you shake my hand and say, I will never, ever commit suicide. And I'm not bluffing. Therapists who continue on forgiving have given the abandonment card to their clients, and they won't make very much progress. And so, of course, when I was trained, they said, you stick with a client no matter what. I don't believe that anymore, because I learned about this basic primal instinct in human personality. I trust by now you're getting the importance of abandonment in human relationships, the fear that is instinctual to animals, birds, and basically humans. We must deal with this fear openly. We must not be afraid of abandonment. And we must teach parents, family, friends, therapists about the importance of this card. Well, it's time to deal with the Oedipal electric complex. Freud thought it was the key of neurosis. He had tried out the sexual causation of neurosis, and it did not work for him. So he said the Oedipal complex is the problem, and he concentrated on that most of the rest of his life. Now, to understand this, we must realize that this is libido, love energy. And there's only so much love energy that we have. And in the Oedipal complex, which Freud was enwrapped in himself, and he almost got himself killed. This is one of my tangents, because he stayed in Vienna because he thought he was special, and the Nazis were killing off Jews. And his friends said, "You got to get out, you got to get out." And he said, "No, no, I can't leave my Etruscan sculptures." He had little sculptures that were from an ancient civilization in Italy. They were his toys, and he was special. And finally, when he saw the reality, he had to leave. Now let me explain that what happens if our mother decides on one child as being very special. She pours out her love energy on that boy. Now, and every time she comes in the room, she pours out her love energy on that boy. Whenever she sees him, she pours out her love energy. When she talks with him, all transactions, the boy is just sugar-coated. I thought about using honey in my illustration, but my wife would have killed me. But anyway, this kid begins to think he's very special, and he has won over his father in terms of the central significance of the mother's libido, or sugar love energy. Now what happens to him? He's special, he's got a little gold heart. Well, one thing that happens is that his father has seen the mother pour out all this love energy on the boy. It's his son, so he can't be angry. And what he does is start being subtly angry at his wife, because she only has so much energy, so much sugar, and she's poured out a lot on this kid. So he might take up Boilermakers, is what they call them on the south side of Chicago, a beer with a shot of whiskey. A beer with a shot of whiskey. So he's kind of in a stupor every evening, because he sees that she's going to keep pouring out her energy on that boy. Well, I'll tell you a lot about what happens to him, but I want to say that Freud was wrong in just saying it was an Oedipus complex. So one of the corrections my wife and I made was that when the father pours out his love energy on a daughter, pours out his love energy on a daughter, smiles, is cheery with her, and he's given up some of the sugar that his wife had received. Now what happens is, what happens to this little girl when she grows up? So one of my questions, my wife's question, is therapeutic. What can we do in this situation? If the father keeps pouring out his love energy on that daughter, I can tell you one thing's going to happen. His wife's going to have a lot of headaches when they go to bed. There's going to be subtle aggression. I don't like using the word aggression because I want to break it down to just anger. There will be passive aggressive anger, because it's going to come out in some way or another. It doesn't make any difference if your religion says you can't feel anger. It will come out in some way. It could even come out in self-hate. But remember back when I was talking about various adaptations in a birth order, and I mentioned I mentioned the kid that was invisible but very perceptive. Well, that was my job as a kid. I was rather invisible. I could sit in a family room of my father's family, who was, he had 7 brothers and 2 sisters. We'd go there every weekend. I'd sit over in the corner and watch them. And this is one reason, by the way, when Bettelheim showed these family movies, I was so good at it. I was used to observing, and he was asking for observation. Well, one thing I noticed in all this family that I grew up in was that one guy was this special little golden-hearted boy whose mother continually poured out. I just have to keep doing that. Poured out sugar. He thought he was sugar-coated. But I watched across the years. He got married 3 times, 3 miserable marriages. His first wife, I recall this very well, she would go in the kitchen, turn the gas jets on, and say she was going to kill herself in order to try and get some interest from this guy. But he was into himself. He was laughing, real happy, and he was the same. It was all about him. She didn't get much love energy. The love energy he had was poured on himself. So she'd go in the kitchen and turn on the gas jets and say, I'm just going to kill myself. I remember this so clearly. But one thing that she forgot to do is to close the window. She certainly didn't light any matches. She was using the abandonment threat to try and get something from this golden child whose mother just poured sugar on him all the time. He got a divorce. He said she was crazy. She said he was a selfish bastard. And so they got a divorce. He married a second time. I watched this. I'm the observer, the invisible child. And his second wife, she figured out a way to get back at him. She went to motels, sleazy motels, would seduce some guy, basically got raped. She was into affairs, and that was getting back at this guy. Third marriage, he married a woman, and everything is about this guy. He just thinks about himself. It's narcissism. We'll have to return to that later on. One thing about these videos that I don't like is I have to squeeze information down, and I'm omitting some very important stuff, and I'll try and come back to it in future ones. But his third wife becomes a lush. She drinks all the damn time. She just starts drinking in the morning. She's getting back at him. Of course, she has her own dynamics, but she's getting back at this golden boy who is oblivious to any of her needs, her wants, her feelings, her thoughts. It's all about him. Now, my wife and I are therapists, and so we had to continually look at Oedipus and Electra, the beautiful girl, and see what we could do about it. So I'm dealing with abandonment in terms of Oedipus Electra. The boy, the golden boy, has basically abandoned his father. He's not so important in his life. And there are complications that come from that. And as for the girl, she kind of just thinks her mother is trash because she's the golden girl of her father. Now there's a virtual minefield, bombs everywhere in the abandonment issue in terms of Oedipus Electra. But I'm not going to go on anymore because these videos have to be relatively brief. In sum, then, the abandonment card, the abandonment instinct, can make emotional cowards of us all. We must either take charge of that abandonment card, or it will take charge of us.